guys, welcome back. Something just as a little bonus to go along with today's tutorial video on GameMaker is I was just going to take you guys, because it's been requested a couple of times now, through a little demo walkthrough of Perspective. Perspective is a platform game I made like 2 years ago, I guess now, as like part of like my final year project at university. And it pretty much single-handedly got me my job where I work today as a game designer. So I made this game entirely with GameMaker 8.1, I think, for Windows, and a combination of also like Photoshop and Flash and various other sort of graphical tools to help that side of things. Also used quite a lot of Audacity for things like sound effects and stuff like that, which you'll kind of notice as we go through. But yeah, I'm not going to walk through the entire game. I just want to sort of give a tour of like the first like 10, 15 levels or something like that, just to firstly just give a taste of my game and everything, and you know, just push a little bit of advertisement out there for myself, but also just show you guys as well the kind of things that's easily possible with GameMaker, because I mean, this took like a few months to put together, but most of that time was honestly just sort of like testing, retweaking and stuff like that. It was really kind of like one of my first sort of full-length kind of games. So I mean, there are things that I'd like to improve about it still. I'm kind of half working on like a sequel to this game as well. But yeah, I'm generally really proud of this as a piece of work. So I'll take you guys through it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So yeah, there's a lot of text as well. You don't need to read it. It's not particularly important, but just you hit a button and you'll get through these lines of text. This is just sort of giving the story and the context. If you're interested, you can read it. If you're not, you can just pay no attention, I guess. So yeah, this is level 1, and this more or less is just like, so we've got the basic sort of platforming environment here, just a simple little run animation when the character turns left and right. I'm actually just sort of inverting, as you'll know if you've watched my platforming tutorial, just inverting the direction the guy looks, like just a smoke and mirrors little trick there. So it's literally just inverted, like I've just flipped the sprite around. I haven't actually made a sprite for walking left and a sprite for walking right. I only have one for his facing and walking right, and whenever he actually needs to go left instead of right, I literally just tell the game to flip the sprite around. So we can go into this little door here, we can open that, basically just to get used to the controls of that level, just let you know how the game is going to flow as well. Every level is going to be a room, it's going to have a door at the end, the objective is to get through the door. So now we have the text talking about, hey, this room's a little bit different, there's like a shiny key in the middle of the room. So when this room comes up, we'll see there sure enough is a big shiny key with a huge focal light on it, just drawing your attention totally towards it. So this level teaches you a number of little things. Firstly, the little platform in the middle there, you'll notice you can't just run up to it and get on it. So you've got to learn how to do something different, because I didn't technically teach you how to jump before. So if you've never played a game like this before, you might have no idea how to jump, or that the character can jump, or one of your powers, or what button that would be. So I have the shift key just sort of hovering above the character's head. I'm not really telling the player what the shift key does, but they see that floating there and they're going to want to press it. So they press it and it's like, oh okay, cool, I can jump. And then I get rid of that information because you don't need it anymore, you know what it does. So you come up over here and you can see the door over on the far right is locked, but you'll notice when you pick up the key, boom, that opens and very clearly animates there, so it's fairly noticeable to the player that when they pick up the key, the door opens and now they can get through the door. So just just very gradually, just not really presenting any challenge to the player at this point, but I'm just sort of introducing all the kind of gameplay elements that they need to know about, so that everything kind of feels fair later on, and they feel like they were actually told how to actually play the game. So here I'm just I'm going to introduce a minor sort of challenge element. Now that you've learned how to jump at all, you just need to clear a bunch of simple gaps, grab this key, see the door open over there, just to hammer that lesson home again, because you started at the door but you couldn't get through it. So you need to go over there and get that key, then come back and you can get through the door. So that's that level. Some more text. And then over here is where I introduce what's kind of the main mechanic of the game. So as you can see, another button floating overhead, but this time it's not floating over the player, it's floating over this little grayed out version of the player over there. And you'll notice you can't get to the key from here, but that guy, if I could be that guy, I'd be able to get to the key. So naturally you're going to end up hitting the spacebar, and whoosh, now you're playing as this guy. So instantly, I mean, you might press it again, you might mess around and be like, oh wow, I can swap between characters on the screen. Okay, and now you've learned that mechanic, so you can pick up that key, swap back to this character, head through the door. So now in this level, you'll notice that the door and the key are both way too high up for you to reach alone. But you know there must be some solution to this, and you'll notice you can't run into this guy, so you might naturally presume that you can't, you won't fall through him either, so you can probably stand on top of him. So it's like, oh, okay, now I can stand up here, now I can reach up to here and get the key. So now you've got the key, but now this guy is positioned over here, so that you can use the ability to swap characters to position the guy over here that you can stand on, to climb up here, and go through the door. So this level, this tries to introduce a concept. I've played around with a lot of different variations of this level, and I'm still not entirely happy with the way this one worked out. But the idea is here, what you need to do is that key in the middle there, you need to get that key, and then you need to get across to the door. But obviously if you just jump down here, you know you're not going to be able to get high enough. But you know you can swap characters, and you can stand on characters, so the only thing naturally that you could use to bridge the gap would be a character. So if you jump into the air and then you press space, you notice that you're frozen in the space there, and you're higher up. So that teaches you that you can freeze and not fall, and the gravity doesn't affect the frozen version of the character. So you can jump on the character, the top of the character. Well, you could if I was actually any good at my own game. And then climb across here to the door. Now, I'm not 100% happy with the way that teaches you, because there's nothing to really sort of imply if you jump to the air and you freeze that your character isn't going to fall. So this is an area where some people do happen to get a bit stuck sometimes. Not 100% happy. And then this level is where everybody gets stuck. These two levels are kind of like a bit of a letdown for me personally in terms of how the game teaches you and stuff. But they're kind of the only ones, I think. They're kind of the only major places where people sort of get a bit stuck. If you can get past these two levels, for the most part, people don't have too much of a problem with sort of grasping concepts throughout the rest of the game. But this level, what it requires you to do is get all of these keys, and now you know you can jump on top of this guy, and you know you can suspend yourself in space. So eventually the idea is you work out that you can build a tower of characters if you keep swapping and moving the platform up that you can stand on. You'll eventually be able to reach that key. But that as a concept is something a lot of players seem to sort of struggle to just sort of leap to after just learning that, just from the knowledge that you can just sort of hide in midair, like you can freeze yourself in midair without falling. Like a lot of players will work out how to get to the second key, but somehow they really struggle, and they won't be able to sort of get all the way to that last key. Like, I don't know, I've heard a lot of stories of people trying to work out how to do things with the wall, or, doing stuff like this, but then being like, oh, I don't know how to get that. For some reason, that extra little leap of being able to swap back to this guy, and then bring him sort of even further up. For some reason, everyone can get to this sort of stage, but people just don't. At this point, people think that the limit is reached and they can't get any higher than this. Surely this is as high as you can get. They don't think to then go back, jump him up even further, and then get that key. At which point it becomes really easy. But loads and loads and loads of people get stuck there. So I mean, I've considered a lot of different ways of making that easier, like funneling the whole room into a tiny tube, so you can't actually move left and right, and the only thing you can do is sort of jump and go upwards, so you just naturally end up by just sort of jumping and swapping, ending up like swapping, just end up sort of creating that tower that you need to create, and then hopefully you would just naturally end up getting the solution right. I mean, the reason this level is here is basically just to teach you this concept of stacking guys on top of one another to get higher and higher and higher. And because it's very useful later on, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out entirely the way I wanted. So this piece of text here also just sort of gives some context and teaches you how to reset the room, which I've already been doing just by hitting R. You can play the game with an Xbox controller as well, and then those little buttons you saw earlier in the game where it told you like to press shift and space will come up as like 360 controllers buttons like A and X or whatever it was I set them all to. It should work with any controller as well actually, but it will default to showing you 360 controller controls, something I guess I didn't think about too much. So this level here is just again just sort of expanding on the idea that you can freeze yourself in mid-air and just sort of letting you play about with that concept a little bit. Grab a bunch of keys and then go through the door. Again, just another repeat of that sort of concept, just freezing yourself in mid-air to grab all the keys and stuff, just to sort of make you feel good about learning that mechanic and just, you know, cause you a little bit of challenge and sort of jumping about and controlling the space. Over here, now we have a much longer gap than we had before, but we have an extra couple of shells. So really, I mean, this is just sort of a kind of a precision jumping little challenge really. Of just jump a little bit further across, create a new platform, jump a little bit further across, create a new platform, until eventually you have this little bridge made of characters, and if, unlike me, you're actually able to jump, you can get all the way back. Oh, I'm not sure it's high enough. Yeah. You do need to carry that bridge pretty precisely. There we go. And then this level I'm basically just teaching the concept of keys doing more things than just opening doors, and what they can do also is the very first key you pick up will remove all of the green key blocks. But in order to teach that, I've just simply put you behind this big wall of stuff so you can't get to that key. So you swap to this guy, you get that key, and then boom, all of those things go away. And then that's taught you how key blocks work. So now, very simple little towering challenge from mechanics you've already learned to get through that door. A lot of people have lots of different solutions at this level actually. The solution I first had in mind was basically just swapping to the middle guy and then using these two as a bridge, because at first you have that platform at the bottom, but then when you pick the key up the platform goes away to do that. But a solution I think a lot of people do that seems to be the intuitive solution is to do this and put a guy up there to begin with, then move this guy over here and then simply swap back to this guy and go through the door. But you know, that seemed a perfectly reasonable solution to me, so I left that one in. Again, this level has a number of different solutions. The one I've originally had in mind was just building a really long bridge of dudes, like in preparation for getting them all neatly spaced out like that. Grabbing the key, and then, yeah, doing that sort of thing to get to the door. What players much smarter than me worked out was simply that you could just place a guy on top of another guy over here, swap all the way back to this guy, grab the key, swap to this guy, jump over there, so you don't really even need half the shells on the level for that one. And again, that's just something players worked out well after release. I mean, I did have a lot of people playtest it, but I don't think any of the playtesters found that particular solution, even though it seems obvious when you think about it now. So, you know, players will always work out ways of breaking your stuff. That's why playtesting is very important. Yeah, the character himself was animated in Flash. Like, I used to do a lot of Flash animation when I was growing up, so I just built him out of like some very simple limbs. His two legs were separate limbs, and his arms and his head are like, yeah, so his body, his leg, his two legs, his two arms, and his head are all separate objects when I was working in Flash. And then I just used very simple tweens and sort of positions and anchoring to sort of create a walk animation, and just and for jumping and falling though, I just basically positioned his limbs and created like a single frame of like what looks like him going up and what looks like him falling. So like there's no actual animation there, it's just a single frame. So this level, it's just a bit of a free fall and sort of just timing when you hit that spacebar so that you're in the right position. all the blocks on the level then, well, this is probably not a good level to talk about it. This level was basically just me creating a sort of inverse of the sort of stuff you've learned, in the sense that every time you see a key, your first instinct now, because you know it opens the door, is to just go, oh, key, and grab the key. But on this level, it removes all the key blocks, and the key blocks make up the entire stage. So if you touch any of the keys on this level, you fall to your death, and you can't really do anything about that. That's one of the reasons as well why there's a sort of short delay when you open the door, between the door like fully opening and getting to the next level. Otherwise you'd be able to sort of grab one of the keys and just sort of fall into the door and hit the level, and that'd be no good. So on this level you just have to be kind of a little bit careful with your jumps. Just sort of sneak over all the keys and get to the door. A lot of people call me quite evil for this level. Yeah, another thing I was saying about the blocks in the background. I wrote code in GameMaker that basically just allowed each block to decide what tile it should be. So I created like a full tile set of blocks that could be used to create any kind of like shape of 64 by 64 squares, like every sort of corner possible. Like you can see over here, like this is like the end of like a tube and stuff like that. And basically then just wrote code into the game that would allow each block to decide at runtime which image it needed to be, which saved me a ton of time when it came to like level editing and stuff like that, because I could just place blocks all over the place and they would automatically work out what sprite they needed to be. So all I had to worry about was placing the blocks, and then they would do the art stuff themselves. On this level, this level is about sort of teaching reverse key blocks, as I've kind of called them. And you see these kind of faded out purple things here. I didn't think the fact that they are a bit transparent was clear enough. Like it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe they're just a bit less saturated. So I made sure that you had to go through them before you got to the key at the other side. So the player will run up to here, maybe they'll try and get over them and jump onto them, but they'll notice straight away that they're going through them. So it's very important that I put the key on the other side, so that you had to come this way to get the key, to then notice that these blocks are now in place and that you can now stand on them. The door is open, so that you're basically forced to learn that mechanic. So this level again is just another sort of use of the reverse keys over there. Like you might try and fall down here, but then you'll notice you fall straight through those blocks. So you need to kind of create a bit of a stairway down to this key. And now you're at this key, you just need to swap back to this guy, curl back, land on that platform, and you're through. Again, this one, it's basically like a copy, I guess, of one of the earlier levels where you had to sort of build a bridge to get across. But because at the moment technically you can't reach those keys up there, or get to the door because those reverse key blocks aren't in place yet. So once you get that key, you can now get up to here, and now you've just got to build some little towers. Now you can walk around freely on the floor, so the whole level has really changed quite a bit. That key. But you do need to get all the keys, open the door. High as possible. I don't know if a lot of players did, but I personally think this level's a little bit tedious. Just like getting these extra keys just feels like a bit of a chore once you've already sort of solved the main aspect of the level. But I've not heard anyone really have any problems with it. Also, I like the fact that the level looks a little bit like a smiley face. The thing with that level as well is it is technically possible, if you leave one of the shells inside a reverse key block before you get the key, is for that shell to then basically become stuck in the block. But I mean, you can reset the room using R, so I never really considered that to be a bug, just so much as you have to avoid getting yourself stuck in there, so you have to be a bit careful about where you build your bridge. So here what's coming up actually is the main mechanic, the mechanic of the game that like my favourite mechanic in the game. which is a shame that I left it so late to put it in. I reckon I could have probably removed some of the earlier kind of fillery levels in order to get to this concept quicker, and that's something I'm doing in the sequel to this game. Is the idea that every one of these characters sees the world in a little bit of a different way. So again, I've put the spacebar tutorial thing up here again, just to show you that I'm going to teach you something when you press spacebar, because you've already got that in your head, as you've learned something every time you've seen one of these and press the button. So the moment you can actually, if you were just walking around and not pressing space, you would notice that you can get through this wall here, but you can't get through this wall over here. But then when you swap to this guy, that pillar goes away and turns black, and now you can get through it easily and get that key. But obviously you can't get back over there, so you need to swap back to this guy who sees the world this way and can get to the door. And then this level is just, again, just an expansion on that concept that you just learned. Like, you'll notice you can't stand over here, so this guy needs some help getting over to that door. So I can jump like this, but then I need to move this guy along this platform that only he can see. Like, he's not going to be capable of reaching this door by himself. So he needs to help this guy get across by moving himself along, like so. Just sort of helping the other guy reach his goal. Yeah, see, there are puzzles one mind can't solve. Together, people can accomplish lots more stuff. The text is very profound in this game, as you might have noticed. So yeah, I'll show you this last one, and then I'll leave the rest for any of you guys that want to go play the game. It only costs $1 for you to buy it, minimum of $1, but you can pay whatever price you think this game is worth to you. If you do want to play the rest of the game, really helps me out when people buy it, so do consider buying if you have liked what you've seen of the game so far. This level, again, is just sort of a matter of, you know, realizing that each one just sort of sees this world a little bit differently, so I'm not going to be able to climb the staircase over here. So I need to move myself down like this. This guy can jump up. And then let him up the stairway. And pop himself through that door. So yeah, I mean, like I said, this game was made entirely in like GameMaker 8.1. If you watch my in-depth platform tutorial, like, a lot of that code is basically used in this game. It's a little more complicated in places for, you know, because obviously I've got stuff like the whole swapping souls and stuff like that, and dealing with changing animations and that sort of thing as I'm moving around. Stuff I might well expand into with my tutorials. But yeah, it was all built using all the same kinds of like logic and thinking. Nothing particularly more complicated or, like, you know, brain melting than anything I've really covered in my tutorials so far. So I mean, this just goes to show that, you know, without any sort of real background in programming or anything like that, anyone can really use GameMaker to make overall it's a fairly polished and decent little 2D game. So it's definitely worth getting involved with. Yeah, I'll pop up a little link on the screen now if you want to go get perspective, and let me know what you think if you do play it. I thrive on anyone sending me like emails or comments, like telling me what they thought of the game. I love seeing anyone's opinion, good or bad. Everything teaches me more about you know, my games and how I should, you know, how I should be making things and how I should tweak levels and things like that. So yeah, let me know what you think of that. I hope you enjoyed, you know, watching that little thing, and hopefully for a lot of people who got stuck on those early levels, I've clarified now how they're done. I do kick myself every time, you know, someone messages me saying, oh, I got stuck on that level with the 3 guys where you have to get the 3 keys. I'm like, oh, god damn, everyone gets stuck with that. But, you know, everything's a work in progress, and I've learned a lot from making this game about game design, level design in general. And like I said, just this game by itself was all I needed to get a full-time job as a game designer. So, you know, again, I think that speaks for itself in terms of how valuable, you know, learning like a free tool like GameMaker could be. So yeah, I've pretty much, you know, I've been about to end this video about 9 times now, so I'm going to end it here. Hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next tutorial video.